Listen to the radio. Harry and Edna's Wireless Show. You heard it from the Three Bells.
What-o, Harry?
And what-o, Edna. And welcome. It's Harry and Edna on the wireless.
What-ho?
And welcome. It's Harry and Edna on the wireless. And this week we're going to be joined by a lord. We have aristocracy, if that is the correct term, joining us, not quite in the studio. Young Edna's going to chat to Lord Joe Wells.
Story behind why he's Lord Joe Wells.
Is there a story?
I believe there is.
Oh, right. Are you not going to tell us, or was that?
No. Let me take some time to gather my thoughts.
Right. So that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. He's an author. He's done children's books, and he's done books about the Isle of Wight involving a dairy herd that ended up sailing.
Yeah.
And he's also done some historical-y stuff about one of the first friendly fire. That's what the modern term is, isn't it? Friendly fire incidents of World War II. So that's coming later. But this is the show where we do like to play some tip-top gramophone tunes.
What-ho?
And we're trying to work out why is he Lord Joe Wells. Now, he's not live in the studio. He came and recorded the interview a little while ago. And I wasn't there. But I did listen to it, and I don't remember him telling us. Unless he does, and I just clean forgot what the interview said.
No, and I can't remember if it was one of these where he purchased a title which is a genuine title that is some sort of craggy island off the coast of somewhere.
Maybe like Sealand. Maybe. That's a World War... If you don't know, Sealand is a World War II anti-aircraft base in the Thames Estuary. It's all metal... But because it's outside of British waters, somebody declared it as their own island. And they give out titles.
Oh, well,
that's how they fund themselves.
Oh.
If you ever watch, there's a TV show about abandoned engineering. They feature it as well. Because it's basically... because during the war, the enemy planes used to fly along the Thames because it's easy to spot from the air. And then, of course, you've got no anti-aircraft guns because it's over water. So they built these platforms. And pot shots. So maybe he's Lord Sealand.
Maybe. It was. I just think it was something like that. I can't quite remember off the top of my head, but I got a feeling that it was something like that.
Well, while you ever think, I'm going to listen to Gene Goldkettle. Or Goldkit?
Goldkit.
And it says his orchestra. And certainly there's a little picture of a chap on the record.
Oh, so we'll assume it's a man, Gene.
What-ho?
No, we don't know if it was male or female, Gene, because not a word was spoken.
No, so we'll just go with male, since that's what the picture shows.
Now, you do seem to have this strange urge to dig a hole at this precise moment.
We should explain we're sharing our studio at the moment, aren't we? And the minute we start talking and recording, they decide to come to life.
Yeah, and we have 2 rabbits in the studio because their shed just fell down.
Yes, we've got rather a storm blowing outside and the wind decided to rip open a hole in their accommodation. So we thought we'd rescue them inside, leave them in here, and then the minute we start talking, they start ripping up the newspaper, which is not the most helpful thing when you're trying to talk on the radio.
Yes, we're digging. We've got 2 rabbits digging a hole or trying to dig a hole through solid wood.
Yeah.
We were talking about anti-aircraft guns and Thames barrier and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But we bounce along here on the jolly Isle of Wight.
Yes, we did.
Overlooking the Solent.
Yes.
And you went wandering. And you found some gunnish news.
Well, yes. And it's amazing if you ever get the chance to come over to visit the island. There's loads of... let's start again. Loads of World War II history just in the landscape, more than I've ever seen anywhere in one sort of place. And so I decided to take the children for a bit of a leg stretch, and we went to a place called Heddon Warren, which has Bronze Age burial mounds. So we decided we'd explore along the edge of the cliff as far as it would go, because it looked like it was about to drop away. And then also those amazing things where you walk along and then suddenly this whole other landscape opens up. And there was this sort of peculiar... it looked like a gun emplacement at the end of the headland. So we kept on wandering down, and yes, obviously the guns have been taken away, but there's all the
the concrete bases.
Yeah, the bases and the bunker type
the bunkers
bits.
and the trenches and sort of.
Yeah, they're all still there, literally on the edge of the cliff on the headland. And I happened to be chatting to somebody about it, and
It was
he
our
said,
good friend Barry.
"Oh, yes,
Air
what
Raid
Barry?"
Warden Barry, who has been on the show before.
He has, and he was explaining that they're anti-aircraft guns, obviously protecting the mouth of the Solent because it gets to its narrowest point, really, a mile away, if that.
If that, yeah.
So he was telling me this interesting story, and the bit that I found the most fascinating was that he said, as you look along the cliff, because from there you can see the Needles, and then obviously you've got the white cliffs that lead up to the Needles themselves.
The Needles being the parts of the cliff where bits of it fell away, and there's like white bits, mounds of chalk sticking out.
Yeah.
That's the name, the Needles.
Yeah.
Just in case you're not from the island.
No, there's a sort of famous lighthouse at the end of it. And he was saying in these white cliffs, there used to be targets, and they used to the anti-aircraft guns would use the cliff as target practice. So literally they were taking pot shots at the side of the cliff, blatting away, I'm assuming, what is already quite a soft, chalky cliff.
The thing that gets me is these planes, the enemy planes that they're shooting at will be fine if they're the size of cliffs. But if they're the size of like aeroplanes, there must be a size ratio difference.
Well, I'm guessing they made them look like little planes.
And they don't move very fast cliffs.
No, but I guess it's getting your range, don't you think? Range practicing.
It could be. Anyway, that's enough about anti-aircraft news, because after our next track by Lou Levin, Levine, you're going to be chatting to the wonderful Lord Joe Wells.
Indeed.
So we should be going into that. But first...
What ho?
Joe, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and what it is you're here to talk to me today about?
Mostly about, I write books and plays and all sorts of rubbish along the way. I've got a fabulous book about the Battle of Barking Creek, which tells the story of an incident, friendly fire incident on day 3 of World War II, where we shot down 2 of our chaps, one of whom died, and there was... I'm sure it's been hushed up at the time. I think it still is. It should be a major feature film, but unfortunately I don't have the budget to do it. But I have a small play book, which was based on the, what's it called, Court Martial. Yeah, Court Martial. And I write children's books, which is unusual because I know nothing about children.
So, just sticking with the Battle of Barking Creek, is Barking Creek in the UK?
No, the event was not. It was at Mersey, where the event took place, but it became, I have no idea why it became known as the Battle of Barking Creek. Everybody knows it as the Battle of Barking Creek. So
what got you interested in it? How did you find out about the story, and what was it that sparked your interest?
I've been into old cars. So old cars got me into the war and that period. I love that period. Absolutely love it. And I always have the imagination of sort of, I should have, if I'd have been older, I'd have been a Spitfire pilot. Douglas Bader, reach for the stars, whatever, reach for the sky. Yeah. The vintage Bentley, hobbling into the cafe, I'd have been one of those, just with a broken arm, nothing too serious. The only thing downside of that is 3 weeks later you're dead. So it's much, much more fun doing it nowadays where you can pretend.
Yeah. And so what was it about that particular incident? Was it because it was something that we just don't hear about, that sort of secret hidden history of the war?
I happened to find it because I went for a ride in my old car. I had a 1935 Austin 7 at the time. I went up to North Weald Aerodrome, which was a wartime aerodrome, and they had a little tiny pamphlet there which said the Battle of Barking Creek, as I was looking around their little museum, and I thought, I wonder what that is. And I read that and thought, And then I started doing the research and finding out more and more and more. Went to the Kew Records office to try and find the record of the court martial, which I knew took place, but there's no record of it at Kew. So I'm guessing that it was hushed up at the time, and I suspect it still is hushed up. So I think it's a fascinating story. But lots of people don't want to talk about it because it's a sort of a bad thing that happened in the war. But lots of bad things happened in the war, and it's history. It's part of the war. So I think it's a fascinating story.
And what gave you the inspiration to write it as you said, it was as if it was being played out in court?
Very simple, money. I have another play which was produced on the Wireless Theatre Company, and low budget thing. I thought, how can I make this play and make it cheap? If I make it the courtroom scene, or even for the radio, I don't need massive Spitfires and enormous great budget to produce the thing. You could produce it very cheaply with people, even if you did it as a film, just in the courtroom would be cheap. So it's very simple. Money is the answer for that one.
So talking about money, if people want to buy this book, how do they go about it?
All of my books are available on Amazon, and they're all remarkably moderately priced. They're all about £5, £4.95 are the children's books, and I think The Battle of Barking Creek is even a bit cheaper than that. And I've got another one, a book of plays, What I Wrote, which was my minor tribute to Eric Morecambe. Everybody now thinks I just can't spell. But, they're very, very cheap. Buy them now.
What ho?
So the plays, What I Wrote, are they literally several plays that you've put together into one book?
Yeah, I think there's 8 plays. It's so long ago since I wrote this stuff. I write it and forget about it. And there's 8 plays in there of different, all sorts of different things in there. So I've got, at the moment, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think, children's books. I've got another one just in the process of being completed. 2 more I've written, and I'm going to carry on writing more children's books because I've sort of found a niche there that I know the format, I know what to do. Yeah. Which is remarkable, being as I know nothing about children. But
does your children's books have a feel? Because we'll talk about sort of the vintage element in a moment. The children's books, are they set in a time period from the past, or are they sort of the future, or is there sort of ways that we were in the past, sort of ideas and ways of being that you've incorporated into your children's books?
They're not set in the past, but they're all old-fashioned in as much that they are moralistic and teach children, if you do good things happen. If you do bad things happen. And, you know, almost like the etiquette, the correct way to behave. It's a very old-fashioned idea nowadays. We were watching last night people in a restaurant in the hotel. And one girl in particular was at their grandfather's birthday party, and she was consistently on her telephone. I was sorely tempted to get up and tell her to stop, but I thought, no, I can't do that. It would be bad form. Nearly as much bad form as her being on the phone, but, you know, I'm old-fashioned.
So you've come over and are visiting us on our lovely old-fashioned little island, and one of the books that you've written is about the Cowes yacht race, but it has a slight twist to it.
Yes, indeed. It's a bunch of cows, a herd of cows, who decide that they will take part in the Cowes yacht race. Because I have a strange, I don't know, maybe I have a strange mind, but that's the way it came to me. And I thought maybe children would find that amusing. I don't see why not. I find it amusing. That's probably because I have a mental age of 15.
And do you come up with the illustrations yourselves? Because they are beautifully illustrated and the pictures are fantastic. Is that something you've commissioned, or do you have somebody that you work with?
I have someone who does it. She is in the Ukraine. To get it done over here is very expensive. So in the Ukraine they work a lot cheaper. But due to the language difficulty, you have to be very specific when you're asking for the illustrations what you want, so that they don't give you. Sometimes they take things very literally, and they send you a rough draft, and you think, no, you've got the wrong end of the stick there. I'll write it out again for you. Yeah. So I've got one particular woman who's done all of the books except for one, and we now have an understanding, which she understands what I want when I write it, and I know what to write to make her know what she wants, if you see what I mean. Yeah. So, and the last one is the Animal Olympics. I am so pleased with that book. The illustrations in there are absolutely gorgeous.
What ho?
But that's kind of an anthem, isn't it? That and Revival Day.
Yeah, that sort of fills the dance floor, doesn't it, with everyone
that's it.
Joining in.
When I used to DJ in the 80s, it was always, if you put Whitney Houston, I Want to Dance with Somebody, if you really were in trouble, that's the one you had to resort to. I hated that song.
Well, that's because you had to play it every time your dance floor died.
But anyway, we were listening to Joe Wells.
Yes.
Telling us all about his books.
Yeah.
But there is more to Joe Wells, and he's coming back on later on. We've got a second segment to play, and he talks about his vintage lifestyle.
Yeah, which
and
is
I'm
fascinating.
very envious of it, because it involves motor cars.
Yes.
And the most vintage I can get in my motor car is a bit retro, with a looky-likey Mini.
Well, it's a Mini, but it's a Mini looking like it used to look back in the, 60s?
Not really. It's more German now, isn't it, really?
Well, it's Mini. Doesn't matter. It's Mini trying to be
It's got a Mini
old
badge.
school
That
Mini.
makes it look old. That's about as close as we get. We used to have a very old car, didn't we? We had a vintage one.
Yeah, and then children
and it
come
literally
along.
just fell apart. Well, it fell apart before I got it, and then I took it apart to restore it and couldn't get it back together.
Well, you took it apart, and then babies came along, which the two things don't really go together well because they both are very time consuming.
That and I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was relying on endless friends to
do a bit here and there.
And
as anyone with a classic car knows, you need a bit more than just doing a bit here and a bit there.
You do? Really?
Yeah, I think so.
Do you know, it wasn't so long ago, I can't remember what it was, I was thinking of buying something. And my friend said, don't. And I said, why is that? And he said, because it'll live on my drive. And I said, yes, it will, because you're the only one that knows. So I'm not going to lie to you. Yes, it will.
We used to call the car Edna, didn't we?
We did.
And she had a crank handle start. And when she wouldn't start and you crank that handle a few times, gosh, it was knackering.
You had to start it on 2 turns, because after that you didn't physically have the strength to turn it anymore.
No. And you just thought, they must have been strong in those days.
Well, we always learned to stop on a hill and then just push it down the hill and bump start it.
Yeah. This is true. We learnt the hard way, though, didn't we, after almost our arms dropping off trying to start her up again.
Oh, happy days.
They were the days.
What ho?
This is Harry and Edna on the wireless. And if you want to catch up with our show, well, you can. Because if you go to harryandedna.co.uk, do you know you can listen to this show and all the previous ones because they're there on the internet streaming service to listen again and again and again and again. Or, if you so wish, you can download a few of the songs we'd make into a podcast. They're speech only. That's all they are. We take out all the music. That's for contractual reasons. But you can download the podcast. So, if you're on the daily commute on the old train and you want to find out what's going on in the UK British vintage scene, that may be a solution for you. We don't do every show because not every show kind of lends itself to be made into a podcast. But they're there. harryandedna.co.uk. Now, I was going to talk to you a bit more about Mr. Bigglesworth. Now, if you don't know Mr. Bigglesworth, he was the cat in the Austin Powers movie, or there was a Dr. No who used to stroke a cat when in the James Bond films. And the reason I was mentioning that is that young Edna is the other side of the studio, which is why you're not hearing her voice, and she's trying to stroke a rabbit to calm it down. And she's sort of stroking it in a way that makes me think she's doing that sort of Dr. Evil look. Now, after the next track, which is Sidney Grantham, we'll be going back to Joe Wells, and he'll be telling us all about his vintage lifestyle.
What ho?
So you're sat here chatting to me this afternoon in a beautiful tailored tweed suit. So there is also a sort of deep love of all things vintage as well.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It started because of the old cars. I had a 1935 Austin 7, which I graduated upmarket to a 1939 Rover. And I've now got a 1947 Bentley. So I love old cars. And going to Goodwood, that's where I first started, because you go to Goodwood, you must get a tweed suit, you must get a tweed jacket at the very least, otherwise you look awful. Nothing worse. And you're trying to take a photograph and someone walks in with a pair of t-shirt and shorts. You think, no, this is 1940, get out. Get out of frame. So, I've now got into, I love the 40s, and my wife and I, she loves dressing up too, luckily enough, and we're getting more and more into the 40s stuff, but we really are just starting. I've got my 2 tweed suits, 1940s suits, which are absolutely gorgeous. I love them. I must give a plug to Chester Cordite, who does the suits. Very, very good suits. And I love it. It's going back to a simpler time. You can feel it's not like the modern rush of the world. It's gentlemanly. Mm-hmm. It's the old days, which I like. Yeah. It's gorgeous.
Do you find the scene is a nice place to be as well, because it's full of like-minded people?
Yeah, definitely, yes. I mean, we went to, this year we went to March in Cambridge, and we spent the entire 2 days we were there. There was 2 people who who were teaching dance. I can't remember their name now. Not awful. I've got a memory like a sieve.
Yeah.
And they were teaching dance. We spent 2 days learning how to dance different dances, which was great fun. My wife loves it, and so do I. So we the atmosphere is always good at these things. I love it. We should do more. But we're not sure where to go. So. We got
any recommendations?
Yes, yeah. Yes. Do write in and tell us where to go in a nice way.
So where can people sort of follow what you do? Is it?
I've got a Facebook page, which is I'm not sure what it's called. I think it's just called Lord Joe Wells or Joe Wells. I'm sure you'll find me if you look on Facebook. You can follow the link from Amazon. I've got an author's page on Amazon, so if you find the books on Amazon, all of this stuff sort of links up. And I've got a website called lordjoewells.com.
What ho?
Well, that was a jolly tune.
It was. Did you reckon? Well, we normally play that by somebody else, someone who's quite a famous actor at the moment.
Yes. Well, he's been a famous actor for a while.
He has. But he was in a TV show called Jeeves and Wooster.
Yes.
Mr. Hugh Laurie did a version of this, and that's what the ones we have played in the past. But that's Danny Kaye. He's got a much more swingier version.
He has. That's why it was so jolly. But I do love Jeeves and Wooster's version of Ode by Jingo. It's very British.
Nearly as much as you enjoyed the Battle of Barking Creek play.
Yes, I did. But I was, to be fair, slightly distracted with sorting out our little friends in the corner, as Harry was alluding to earlier, saying I was being a Goldfinger, whatever it was he was saying.
Was it. Well, in James Bond, he stroked the nasty man.
Yes.
He strokes his cat.
Wasn't his name Mr. Goldfinger? I know, I just said
there
whatever
was one that was Goldfinger, but I think the one with the cat, wasn't that Dr.
No? I think it was Dr. No.
Or was it Scaramanga? Or am I getting confused?
Oh, see, we're such James Bond know-it-alls, aren't we? No.
Not at all.
No. But
Austin Powers had
indeed.
Mr. Bigglesworth, which was one of those cats that have no fur on.
Yeah, that wasn't. I'm not keen on that. I don't know how you could stroke a flesh really of a cat.
But instead, really being poorer than James Bond, we deal with rabbits.
Yeah, really hairy, furry, lovely rabbits that are trying to break their way out of their cage at the moment. Well, it's not a cage; it's like a big pen thing they're in.
It is,
and they've discovered the weaknesses already.
They have, and you were stroking the one. It's not Mr. Bigglesworth.
No,
it wasn't whatever he called his own cat, Scaramungers or whatever it was. Ours is simply known as Girl Bunny.
Yes. Well, we took ages deciding a name for her. She was called Cordelia, which I think was a name from Shakespeare, and then she ended up being Cora. But because she'd been Girl Bunny for so long, so we couldn't think of her name, she sort of still referred to as Girl Bunny. Bless her. So, yeah, well, you do. You go to the vets and you say, this is Girl Bunny. Oh, no, that's not her name.
What's it say on her bunny passport?
It does say Cora.
Oh, so we have got the name right.
She has, we did name her before we took her to the vets.
That's good.
What ho?
Now, when we do the show, sometimes I yell or motion that we're underrunning or overrunning. And I thought, if you're underrunning, how could we fill the show? And I thought, I know, I could do a tap dance. I could do...
Do you think
just
that's
like
what
Maxwell
he was doing?
did.
Do you think he was not actually dancing? You think he was actually just tapping on a table?
Yeah, because they saw too many grooves in the record and they thought, we're going to fill that bit of shellac.
You reckon?
So they just tapped.
Oh, you made me headphones go funny.
That's because you were impressed with my dancing technique.
I was overwhelmed.
Well, it's the end of the show, so it's just time for me to say Tingly Tonk, but to say we're going to play Glenn Miller because we get lots of requests for Glenn Miller and it's Boulder Buff, and so it's Tingly Tonk from me
and a toodle pip from me.
What ho?